Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. I'm your director, Christian Buckley, here back after the Thanksgiving break for your episode on December 5th with the Apex legend, Jack Martin.
Excelsior. Now, Christian, what comes to mind is when we recorded Jedi Knights with Mike Connors and Pat Maroney last year, and we did like an interstitial in between Thanksgiving, and it posted after Thanksgiving. And you posed the question, "Did you enjoy Thanksgiving?" to the table, to which Pat replied, "I'm stuffed." So that's what I think of when I think of Thanksgiving now.
I'm glad that you remembered that, because let me tell you, I did not.
It was amazing.
Yeah, that was a time, because that was a very long shooting day too. But
Oh yeah.
this year we took the week off for Thanksgiving, and luckily it worked out because like nothing happened. Like, I think in the world of Marvel's Avengers, the biggest thing that happened in our week off was probably people buying the game. Maybe.
Yeah.
You'd assume, right?
Although
like,
I guess we won't know officially, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's safe to assume that because it was half off, people probably bought it.
yeah, like I think I sent this to like you. I think Amazon had it for like $25. So at that point, I think any Marvel fan that was even hesitant would probably be interested in grabbing it for at least the single player stuff. So if you're a new listener finding the show, welcome. This is a show dedicated to Marvel's Avengers and other Marvel stuff too. But we break down the Marvel Avengers news every week, every Saturday here on youtube.com/joyclicks and podcast services. Jack, like I said, there wasn't a lot of news in our time off, but the game, of course, is getting its refresh. So why don't we run through Fury's report for this week? First up, reminder. Kate Bishop is dropping Tuesday, December 8th for free. If you own the game and you can connect to the internet, you're going to be able to download an update that will bring you Kate Bishop, her story missions, her operations, a new boss fight. That's all going to be free, available to you on December 8th. So if you're ready, maybe check to see if the game's already updated if you haven't played it in a bit, but we're on the cusp of new content.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like, I like the world that the game lives in and sort of presents, so I'm excited for more story content from it, especially with Kate, who is becoming, I guess, as we'll discuss later, becoming sort of more of a noteworthy character in the Marvel universe outside of just this game.
Yeah. Most people that I've talked to that are familiar with Kate, she's like one of their favorite Marvel characters of recent time, deservingly. So I think her being in this game, which I know there's a lot of debate on if the game flopped or not, but like it's the second best debut of a superhero game ever. There's a lot of people that are about to play Kate Bishop and have their first experience with Kate Bishop for free. And from everything we've seen from her, I like the characterization so far. I'm really excited to see Ashley Birch take on this role and see how they weave her into what is essentially the first step of building the world of this game beyond where it started. You know, like if the launch campaign with Kamala was Iron Man 1, this feels like it's not Iron Man 2, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
I get what you're saying.
it feels like we're taking a big step to it's like the post-credit scene for Iron Man 1, you know? You've entered a bigger world.
And to what you're saying with that, like, this game was really important for, essentially, like, I think the most important part about this game was showing off Kamala Khan's story. And like that's a character that's new to a lot of people, new to me particularly, through this game. And I think Kate's going to be in a similar boat. And it's cool that they're making this game sort of like a launching pad for new and interesting characters. And of course for old ones too, but most particularly for those two characters. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'll add this on too, similar to Kamala, that being a first exposure to her for a lot of people in a mainstream scenario. She didn't really have competition, I guess, the way that like Thor or Iron Man did in terms of the audience going in. And I think launching Kate as the first post-launch hero when the game is starved for content and the community is, that's going to be really helpful if they at least do a solid job with Kate, because we've seen recent pictures in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that she's going to be in the Hawkeye show that's shooting right now, and it's going to be played by Haley Steinfeld. So, like, we're moving there. So I think having Kate, it's a really good time to launch a Kate thing, I think, on this scale.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like all eyes are on Kate Bishop right now.
Which is exciting.
Definitely.
Speaking of, when she does drop Tuesday, the marketplace will do a new reset. It's not going to be next Thursday. It will be on Tuesday. As of right now, in the store, you can just get emotes, really, for the rotation of microtransaction things. There's no skins. You know how if you queue it up, there's usually, like, the top row is a variety of skins for characters. Right now, it's all emotes. And that's just because it's, like, it's a shorter reset week, and you'd assume when Kate hits, there's going to be a lot of Kate costumes in the store.
Yeah. I also... So I haven't played this game in a few weeks at this point, and I jumped in today just to see if anything was new, or if there's an update or anything. And I immediately went to the marketplace, and it was just all the same cosmetics as I saw last time I jumped in. But as you say that, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
So, not to worry, if you wanted to spend money on the game, just wait a few more days. I got some credits banked up, so just be ready. Like I said, update the game if you haven't yet, see what's up. And yeah. If you are playing the game, though, or you're popping back in this week, the priority missions are the following. Stark Realities is the low power level one. I played that one a lot because of the beta. And then Our Town is the high power level. And I believe that's like the suburbs in Utah.
Yep, that's correct. And there's like a lab in the middle. That's it.
Really weird layout.
Yeah. I feel like I don't see that one a lot. Because like not a lot of other missions bring you there. It's pretty particular.
Yeah, so that's refreshing. Honestly, I haven't played the game in a little bit, so maybe diving in, I might pop in there just to reacquaint myself with controls, diving into the new content this week.
Yeah, a couple days before Kate. Can't hurt.
The Harem Room for this week will net you Avengers number 122 from 1963 for your comic collections, and because it's a new month, there is a new community challenge. Right now it is 7.5 million Adaptoids to be killed, and you'll get a new Captain America nameplate, which I swear to God, I haven't checked this, but it's like a zoomed out, less cropped version of a Cap nameplate I've already seen.
Oh, man.
So
I just thought of this. Due to the player drop-offs, particularly with the PC platform, but I would imagine with other drop-offs as well and other consoles, I take this for granted. I just assume that this would happen. What if, since like a lot of people aren't playing this game anymore, these community challenges just don't like get fulfilled?
Jack, I'm glad you brought that up because I had that thought as I was writing that, like, the recap.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, when I was writing the show up earlier, I was like, 7.5 million. Okay, that's a lot.
That, like, it wouldn't be if it was like regular, like, launch day numbers, right? Like, you would assume, like, oh, I'm sure that's doable. But man, right now in December, I don't know that it's possible that doesn't get achieved. Maybe we should keep our eyes out on that.
Yeah, I think you are very valid in bringing that up. I thought the exact same thing. But that really is it for Fury's report. There's a few more pieces of news to talk about this week for the game. First up, via the Play Avengers subreddit, which, again, is very active. I recommend, if you're a fan of the game or a listener of this show, to check it out if you use Reddit. Some developers from Crystal Dynamics are very active on there. They respond to a lot of questions, fan feedback, stuff like that. So they browse that. Looking through that subreddit earlier this week, I did see that there was a survey being shared around to give feedback to improve the game. I haven't had a chance to sit through the survey and fill it out yet, but I know Jack did. So, Jack, do you want to give us a rundown of what the survey entails and what the scope of it is?
Sure. So first off, I would recommend all of you anyone who's either just started playing the game or has played it since launch and has dropped off or is still playing it, to go out and fill this out. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes, they say. It took me closer to 10.
I'll also, sorry to cut you off. I'll list it in the description of the podcast version and the video version also, if you want to check it out. I will put it there.
Yep, definitely. And so, a little backstory about me. I studied marketing in grad school, and I've studied like briefly marketing research, and this is an example, like a survey is marketing research. And what this basically means is that the developers want to hear from you to do future improvements, because this is like a way for them to see what the audience says and dislikes and likes about the game to sort of drive their development going forward. So it's very important to actually go and do this if you want the game to improve, which I'm sure if you're listening to this, you do. So yeah, the questions themselves are essentially like what I said. Like, it starts off like, when did you get this game? Did you play the beta? What were your impressions of the beta? And then what were your impressions of the main game? And then there's like a bunch of nitty gritty stuff like, do you like the loot progression? Do you think the game's repetitive? Which aspects would you like to be improved upon? And then it's like very general stuff like, what other games do you like to play that aren't Marvel's Avengers? But yeah, there's a lot of, in the middle of it, it's a lot of specific stuff like, did you think the environments were too repetitive, or do you think there could have been more game modes to flesh the game out? And what would you like to see in the next 6 months, essentially? So yeah, that's pretty much the scope of the survey there.
Nice. Yeah, I honestly, like I said, I haven't had a chance to read through it yet, but hearing that is very hopeful, because you're absolutely right. This exists for a reason, you know? And I think because they're specifically asking these questions where we all know the answers to these, based on our discussions, what we've seen in the community, the discussions we've had with other people who like the game, there's going to be a very real look at the pulse of this game for the biggest fans and even the people who are casual, I say loosely, and like fell off, maybe. Like, we even fell off, but like, we all know the answer is going to be yes, the environments are repetitive. So like, them seeing a massive formal list, like data of people seeing and saying how displeased they are with diversity, environments, repetitiveness, I think is going to be instrumental. Maybe not in the next 6 months like they're asking about next 6 months. I think for those asks, you probably have to be a bit more realistic. But come year 2 of this game, I think this survey could be huge for the future of the game. And I'll even say, to the credit of surveys in game development, like, I can think of 2 or 3 even really notable examples of games recently putting surveys out there and really changing a lot. Square Enix, okay, it's another Square Enix game. I didn't even realize that. Octopath Traveler, the Switch exclusive RPG that was like 3D, 2D pixel art kind of. They put a demo out, I think, the summer of when the game was going to launch, and it launched like that fall. That demo had a lot of feedback around it, and they put a survey out with the demo, and the survey was really responsive, and they did a lot of changes based on the survey to the game, and the game was really celebrated at the end of the year. So even if you're doubtful, even if you're down on the game, I recommend, like Jack said, fill out the survey, because you don't know how influential it can be, so I would assume it could be very influential.
Yeah, and there's always like this sort of stigma with surveys. It's like, oh, this doesn't really matter. It's just, it takes too long, and like, are they really even going to see this? Like, they're putting this out there, like what you said, Christian, for a reason, and research for stuff like this is really important. Like, they want to hear the feedback, and we've been speculating a little bit. Like, I have a feeling now, seeing that they have this survey, that they've been purposely quiet because their like heads are like down in their monitors, and like they are working to improve this game. And there's not really a lot to say right now because they're just sort of hunkering down. I feel like this sort of maybe like lends credence to that idea. So I think it's really important to go and do this. And there's a part at the end where it's like, do you want to sign up for your email to be used as like more research or whatever. I signed up for that because like if there's ever another survey or they have other research they want to conduct about the game, then I want to do that because I do want this game to improve. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do the exact same thing because, like, yeah, we wanted to bring Excelsior back because we like Marvel and we like talking about Marvel, but, like, specifically this time focusing it on this game, I think it's because after the beta, you and I both realized that, like, this game has a lot of potential. And I really do think that it is going to fall in the community, and, like, we are part of that. The listeners are part of that. So, like, even if you think it's meaningless, it's like 5 to 10 minutes. It's exactly what you said. Just do it. If you're displeased with it, do it. If you're happy with the game, do it. It can't hurt. It can only help the game.
Do it during your morning coffee, during your lunch break. It doesn't take too long.
Yeah. Do it during a loading screen because, man, some of these loading screens in this game are pretty rough.
That's a good one. That's very good.
Yeah. So, moving on to another update. Yes, we're getting new content this week, and we are getting a Super Adaptoid boss fight as part of Kate's content drop. And previously, during the war table, it was revealed that there's going to be a multiplayer version of this boss fight that is classified as an Omega level threat. Now, we're still not crystal clear on every single definition of what that could be, but we do know that Omega level threat most likely means, hey, you kind of need to do this with other people, and it's going to be very challenging. So, the only Omega level threats we've heard tossed around so far are this Super Adaptoid multiplayer version and the cloning lab, which may or may not be the raid. Both of those are not ready yet. As of recording this on Friday, last night, Play Avengers on Twitter tweeted out, update on Omega level threat missions. We're excited for Kate Bishop to join Marvel's Avengers and can't wait for you to play her on December 8th. While her unique combat and operation are complete, the Omega level version of the Super Adaptoid mission and AIM cloning labs are going to need a little more time for polish. We're looking forward to getting them into the game as soon as possible, and we'll share an update when we have it. The story version of the Super Adaptoid mission will still be available in Kate's operation on December 8th. So, in terms of multiplayer content, still not anything major on the horizon. It sounds like, based on the way they're talking about it to me, I would expect this stuff to hit mid to early January at the earliest.
Yeah, you just can't have anything close to Christmas, I don't think, or close to the holidays that are in the latter half of December. And yeah, it seems like it is, even beside that, it seems like it's off a little bit. Shout out to friend Mirabella, who we always talk about, who's played the cloning lab in September or October.
You know, like, based on what I was reading last night, because I checked the subreddit last night as well, after this tweet was out there, just to see what the community response was, and somebody who played the cloning lab was like, I have a piece of gear from it. So, like, it was complete. So what this is telling me is that they're doing a massive overhaul to it. This is pure speculation, but they said based on the fact that it was a thing they played through, they got something out of it. Because it's still not out there, it to them means that there's going to be some pretty notable changes to it, which I think could probably be a good thing, you know? If the cloning lab was really just like a mega hive and you fought Abomination 3 times, like, yeah, rework that, I think, you know?
Yeah, I think this game is already in a drought that, like, it doesn't even matter if something like that takes a little bit longer. Because what they need something to come out that is, like, so... Like, you need to go back in and play this. Like, that's how good it is. And I am fine with it taking a little bit longer. It is disappointing, of course, because I think we've been speaking about this in past episodes, but I think multiplayer is very important for this game, and it's almost useless at this point to go in and play with your friends. There's just really no point of it. Aside from just wanting to play with your friends, there's just no challenging game types or missions that require you to go in with your friends. But like what you said, the Omega level threats will be. We'll just have to wait a little bit for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, and this is just a gut feeling. This is based on almost nothing, but I'll put this out there too. considering what we're talking about with the survey, potentially Crystal wanting to shift directions and really adapt, I do think they really want the Omega level threats that they're going to release to be as good as they can be, because honestly, I think once those drop, there's not going to be a new substantial huge add-on the scope of that until the game's ready to release its like soft reboot type thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think we'll still get a couple characters, you know, after the drop of the new Omega level threats, but I do think that they want it to be as good as it can be so people can rely on returning to this content while, like you said, they are heads down working on making the game what it could be.
Yeah, and you also just can't release any bad content for this game right now. Like, that is not a possibility. So I think they're like what you said, like focusing on making this as good as possible.
For sure. Well, speaking of that, we're going to talk about our updates a little bit, just in line with expectations for the coming week. Because, Jack, I've been thinking about this since the Kate thing was revealed. I am fully prepared as like a nearly 7-year Destiny player. I am fully prepared for people to roll up to the Kate thing, beat it in like, I don't think it's going to be long. I think people are going to be upset with how long it is just based on the trends of Destiny content. Like, I think they're going to burn through it. There's not going to be any multiplayer stuff to do afterward. And then, despite how solid or good or great the writing, the presentation, the set pieces of Kate's campaign could be, I'm expecting a lot of negativity this week, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going in with very, very tempered expectations because I think you and I have probably a good sense of what this will actually net out to be. Like, this is just going to be 1 to 2 hour story content and like a new environment and a new villain and a new character. That's pretty much it. And I agree with you. I feel like people might have high expectations, like that this will save the game. This will absolutely not save the game. We're gonna tell you that right now. Like, that's just not what's gonna happen. It's good content, but it's rather small in the grand scheme of the game. There's no new multiplayer stuff, which I think is like necessary. But yeah, it's a fun content update, and if you're listening right now, I think that's what you should expect for this. And maybe our expectations will be, I think they'll be met, and maybe they'll be surpassed, but probably not.
Yeah, I wouldn't even rule out Kate's story taking less than an hour, honestly.
Yeah, a couple missions maybe. 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think like the length of one of the average iconic quests, maybe, just with cutscenes. Like, I really think going into Kate on Tuesday, tempered expectations, maybe put aside an hour and be prepared for that to be the main hour, and then you get to the grind of getting her to level cap and then 150, because I've seen it happen too many times with Destiny, with even stuff I loosely followed, like The Division or anything like that, really. Like, never underestimate how fast players can burn through content, because even if it's really solid but not a lot, especially in a time where people are really hungry for content with this game, I'm expecting a lot of hot takes this week about, like, the game's dead, you know?
Yeah. I'm expecting to play this. I'm done with school now, so I'm just dedicating my life to video games at this point for the next month. I expect to play this from, like, Tuesday through the weekend. And, like, if I can in that time, probably get her to 150 and then be done with it. So I expect, like, 1 week, maybe 2 weeks with this. I don't think it's going to be that much.
Yeah, because I also want to get her to 150 because she looks super fun to play. She looks exactly how I wanted her to play. And as somebody who really loves Thor and wishes I could, like, modify him a little bit more just to be a little faster, I want to have Kate as 150 as long as I like how she plays on the controller, so I can use her in the cloning lab, because I would really love to use a bow character for a raid content, just because that I feel like that's how my playstyle works best. So I really am also planning on, similar to you, getting her to 150.
Yeah, I love a good ranged character, so she will definitely be in the rotation.
Absolutely. Do you have any other final words about Kate before we get into our main topic?
Not really. Like what we said, temper your expectations, and you won't be disappointed.
Nice. Well, this past week, we got to talk about some stark realities.
Speaking about expectations.
Yeah, because, listen, Marvel's Avengers is a single-player game at launch. It is a single-player game that has been sprouting the beginnings of multiplayer, MMO-like, Destiny-like games as a service stuff. And I think it's fair to look to other games that are doing that incredibly well and compare the way that you and I have almost weekly at this point on the show. Like, you talk about Apex a lot, I talk about Destiny a lot, because they do similar things to what the shelf life preservation of this game is meant to do, right? Like, yeah. The game as a service stuff is to let it live and be exciting. This past week, probably the most successful game as a service, I would assume. Like, I don't know the raw numbers, but Fortnite recently had a Marvel-themed season. Now, I didn't really play it at all this season. I kind of fell off Fortnite about a year and a half ago. I don't know if you played anything.
Yeah, I stopped playing Fortnite, like late 2018. When I was in Ireland, like I didn't have access to Fortnite, so I just couldn't play it. And then when I got back, I was like, I lost all of my knowledge with this game. So, but I loved Fortnite back in the day.
Yeah, me too. I had a lot of fun with it. I really didn't play any of the Season 2 stuff, or Chapter 2, whatever they call it. But the Marvel Season Pass was tempting. Like, I reinstalled it when it launched, and I, like, popped in there. I was like, wow, I suck, and then I just deleted it. But it's been really interesting because they had, like, a Marvel-themed Battle Pass. There was a bunch of skins you could get that were all Marvel-themed, like Wolverine, Iron Man, Thor.
Yeah. And they nailed them, too. They look great.
Yeah, they look really good. A little salty because when Infinity War came out, they did a crossover and you could get a Star-Lord skin, and it's like a dollar store version of Star-Lord. Like, it looks like something you go to the Dollar Tree, and in the toy section it's like, man, that is super, and it's like, it's Superman, but it doesn't look like Superman.
Right. And if you insert your gameplay here, you'll probably see it.
Yeah, so if you're watching the video version, you see my pathetic Star-Lord. But the season came to an end with a big live simultaneous event, the way that a couple seasons have ended. But this time, it was Marvel-themed. They've been telling a story this entire season. You don't need to have spent any money on the game to experience this. What it was a live event where, I believe around 3 on East Coast time, Saturday, you were able to queue up into, I think it was over the weekend, queue up into a match of Fortnite, and you spawn on the helicarrier with the entire lobby, and you just watched Galactus, the Marvel supervillain, rise up from the horizon, approach the Fortnite island, and just start going to town on it. And then it was this event that was fully, like, orchestrated in terms of new mechanics for the game. There was voice acting. Iron Man was, like, leading all the players of Fortnite, and it was Nolan North voicing Iron Man, which is really trippy. And you ran through this event that lasted like 10 minutes where everybody in the game grouped up together to take down Galactus, and it was super cool.
Dude, so we played this together? We were freaking out throughout this. I know there's been a lot of conjecture about this, like some people have been disappointed or whatever. I came in this with no expectations. I was blown away by this. Like, man, I didn't even play, like what you said, I didn't even play through the chapter, or this season for Fortnite, the Marvel season. I jumped in like an hour before, played a game, and then I read the comic that basically like set the stage for how Marvel was in the Fortnite universe. And then I played this with you. and was absolutely like enthralled with what was happening. There's one point where you're driving the battle bus and you're flying it rather, and you do a trench run sequence up Galactus's arm while Iron Man has AC/DC pumping through the speakers. Like, man, they nailed it.
Yeah, it was really awesome, and it was cool because everybody was there experiencing it together. It did feel like in a cartoony, Fortnite-y way, like a cinematic Avengers moment, kind of like.
Yeah.
There was a fleet of battle buses. I think there was 100, and it was like for each player, it was like, oh, you're the main one, you know. But like I saw your name tag on a battle bus, like flying through that fleet next to me. So it was just really super interesting for a game as a service to create an event that is very diverse from a lot of its other content, highly cinematic, huge payoff to the past couple weeks and months of, I wouldn't say storytelling per se. Like, I know there's been comics that have set the stage for it, like you said, but there was a build up to it. And I think because Fortnite's a game as a service, because it nailed a Marvel event, in our opinion, I think it's fair to say, hey, Marvel's Avengers, take notes.
Oh, absolutely. We were talking about this as we were playing it. We were like, man, it's very possible. Like, before, we were sitting on the helicarrier and just, running around, and we were saying it's very possible that we come out of this saying that Fortnite just outdid Marvel's Avengers at its own game. And in this very specific instance, they kind of did. Like, I did not feel the same way playing through Marvel's Avengers as I did playing through that 10 minutes of that event. Like, that was, I think, so perfectly crafted for what it needed to be. And I just don't think we've seen that from Marvel's Avengers.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, completely, the Fortnite Marvel season, I want to say, started in, like, July, maybe?
Yeah.
It was some point over the summer when it began, and yes, Avengers dropped in September, so not too soon after, but Avengers has had the rocky launch they've been trying to fix. So I think there's a world where doing seasonal storytelling and events like this, where at the end of the season there's this big climactic thing, you got to be there for it. I think that's very possible for them to do, because Destiny started doing that this year, and I think I've brought up the events on the show a couple times, but there was one where if you went to the social space, this one took like 3 hours. I think it was a very long, drawn-out one, but this was their first one. There was a spaceship from a prior expansion that was just abandoned, and over the course of the season, like the week-to-week story, or the week-to-week missions for that season specifically, every couple of weeks we got a new cutscene, and the culmination of it was the spaceship was going to collide with the Earth and hit the social space and blow everything up. But the entire season, we were like helping this satellite get fixed so it could blow the spaceship up, so there was no destruction.
Wow.
And we got to witness that live.
Damn.
More recently, before that was the first seasonal thing they ever did. The second one was a couple weeks ago. It was right before the new Destiny expansion. The big ball in the sky from Destiny, it healed itself, and then servers went dark. It's like, see you tomorrow. So I think there are examples with games like that really work. And I think with how Marvel's Avengers, the MCU, comic books are structured to work as like serialized, I really think there's a lot of room for Avengers to follow this format and do some really satisfying storytelling yet so far. And like, I think we could be on that path, but we don't know yet.
Yeah, so with those games in particular, with Fortnite and Destiny, like, we didn't see those events for those games until, like what you were mentioning, they got their footing. And Marvel's Avengers, obviously, is not there yet, and it probably won't be there for months at this point. But yeah, I do think it's fair to speculate and maybe even expect similar events to pop up for Marvel's Avengers, especially for a game that needs people to come back in. Like, Fortnite doesn't need people to come back in. They're good. Destiny, to an extent, like, has a solid... Actually, I think it has a very good player base.
Oh, it's massive, yeah.
Yeah, looking at the Reddit, so they're probably in a similar boat. But yeah, Avengers is struggling right now, and having these limited timed events where, hey, you need to come in and we're going to do something really cool and we're going to tee up the next season. I think it's actually pretty vital for them to do something like that. And yeah, like this, like they did Galactus, of course, with Fortnite because they could do whatever because nothing really needs to make sense in the Fortnite universe. So I guess Marvel's Avengers is slightly more restricted. But still, they could do some really cool stuff with villains or any sort of event that happens in the Marvel universe. So yeah, I think that is needed, and I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, like I can picture them going a bunch of different ways with it. Like maybe whatever track we're on, we wrap up the whole Kree thing, and then there's a season that's like, hey, Hank Pym's experimenting with stuff. At the end of the season, new map area, it's Manhattan, and there's a bunch of Ultron bots everywhere. You got to fend off them as much as you can. You lose. See you in a couple days when the new season or expansion hits, and it's the Age of Ultron. Like I think there's super strong potential for this game, and most recently they kind of surprised us when they referred to Kate as the kickoff of season 1. So season in that context could mean a lot of things, but I do think considering Kate is a story-based thing first with a new character, Clint is going to also be a story-based content. I do think there's a world where they have seen the success of simultaneous events, because Fortnite's been doing that since like 2018 with like the Cube and stuff like that, the rocket launch. So they've had time to see that. Yeah, Destiny kind of adapted to it this year, but I do think Avengers, in some ways, at launch, was able to adapt from some of the downsides of other games as a service games. Like I think I said this during the launch week, but Avengers at launch to me was more satisfying as a whole than Destiny was at launch.
Yeah.
So like it had its own problems, but it didn't have the same problems, you know?
Right.
So I think there's potential. I think it's fair to expect that. If there's room to write that in the survey, I might write that. But
yeah, there is some like open-ended questions. I'm not sure if there's anything as open as that, but I think you can definitely sneak that in somewhere.
Yeah, but man,
and
it
like
was
that,
cool.
Yeah, that is a trend like that I expect to see in more battle royales and like in more games as a service. Like even Apex to an extent has like limited time modes depending on the season and depending on the holiday that it's around. So even if it's something like that, that'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as time goes on, there's just going to be more and more expectations for Avengers to be doing exciting things, you know?
Yeah.
And the format of seasonal storytelling and seasonal events to be the culmination of it, I do think it's straightforward enough that any game could attempt it. And with the rich wealth that Avengers has to pull from, I think that could make the game last a very long time.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to say easy, but I think it's like it's teed up where they could just knock this one out of the park. Like, there's so much they can draw from, like what you said, and like it's almost infinite the amount of possibilities that they could do for things like this to just keep generating interest, which is much needed for this game. So I think maybe mid 2021, if this game has got its footing and it's going moderately strong, we could potentially see something, not to that scale, but something like this. Definitely the year after, I think. But yeah, maybe next year.
Yeah, when we did our predictions for next year, like my dream, if they got to adapt, but like my dream is the summer next year is huge for this game. Because like the MCU and Marvel in general, it always feels best in the summer to me.
Totally.
You know, it's the summer blockbuster, so like really take advantage of that energy. Yeah, I think I have high expectations for this game in 2021, so we'll see how it falls. But I think, unless you have anything else to say on the Galactus event as a whole, beside it being cool.
it was real cool. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. What did you think of Nolan North returning?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So there was Nolan North as Iron Man, Travis Willingham as Thor, which both of those are in the same characters in Marvel's Avengers, and man, I'm blanking on his name. The guy who did Wolverine was Zeb.
Steve Bloom?
Yeah, Steve Bloom, who voices Zeb from Star Wars Rebels.
Nice.
Yeah, that was cool. If we see Wolverine in Marvel's Avengers, I guess we know who we're getting.
Yeah, because I think Ultimate Alliance 3, the Switch game that dropped a couple years ago, it had a ton of returning characters, or returning voice actors. Like, it had Yuri Lowenthal as Spider-Man, Steve Bloom was Wolverine, Nolan North was Deadpool. So it's like a lot of returning characters, or a lot of actors returning to characters they played before. So if Nolan North owns Iron Man right now, I'm not too upset, you know?
No, I mean, he does a good job. I don't think it's anything like out of that's like, oh man, he is Iron Man. I don't think anyone could do that at this point. But yeah, he's a good Iron Man.
Yeah, agreed. So as we wrap up, let's look to the multiverse, because meanwhile, while all this is going on, there's been a lot of rumblings recently, castings that are leading people to believe, again, reported castings, that Spider-Man 3 in the MCU is going to be a Spider-Verse film. And recently, there was a Sony YouTube channel that in Spanish posted a teaser ad that has since been taken down and gone private. But the video shows like clips from Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and Tom Holland Spider-Man. And it translates to, who's your favorite Spider-Man? You don't have to choose. In the Marvel Universe, anything can happen. And in Spider-Man 3, you will probably see them all. Yes, the 3 Peter Parkers saving the world together. Find out more very soon on News. So, Spider-Verse.
I am so mixed about this. Like, initial blush, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, I don't know if that's what this movie needs.
Yeah.
What I really want from the next Spider-Man movie, Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, is like a very introspective movie. Because I think, while I like Homecoming, and to a lesser extent I do like it, but what am I thinking of? Far From Home. Like, I don't think they nail like the sort of gravity of Peter's situation as a young kid. Like, with the full brunt of this responsibility of him as Spider-Man. I don't think they really nail that. And I think that this upcoming movie should tackle that, especially since his identity has been blown. And now he has to live with that, like really live with it. Like, he can't escape that. I think this might be a little too much for this movie. Like, and from the rumors I've heard, it sounds like this would just happen at the very end of the movie, in like the third act situation. I don't know if that's true. That's, again, rumors, but like I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's going to be all that meaningful.
I'm really surprised at how little fanfare there is about it. You know, like obviously there's hype from the fans, but similar to how I felt about, I think, at Star Wars Celebration. The year of Rise of Skywalker coming out, when there was like the reveal of the title, the reveal of the Emperor, when it said like the saga ends, I was like, huh? What? Like, why now? You know, like, I think in a similar way, yeah, I'm super excited to see Andrew Garfield be Spider-Man again. I'm super excited to see Tobey be Spider-Man again. Like, I'm with you. Like, I think you're not wrong when you say that that's not what this movie needed to be, because I really love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I think he's the best of both when it comes to being Peter and being Spider-Man.
Yeah, I agree.
Personally, none of them are my favorite adaptation, though, because shout out Yuri.
Yep. We are 100% in agreement.
Yeah. Like, Spider-Man 3, I really wanted to be Peter trying to fix the situation he got himself into, and finishing off, I think, in the same sort of tone as the other two, Homecoming and Far From Home. because I was ready for them to do like a second Spider-Man trilogy with him as college-aged adult-ish Peter on Manhattan and really get to what so many people's issues with these Tom Holland movies are. You know, like the number of people I've talked to that are like, he's a kid, he's not Spider-Man, he's Iron Man Jr., he doesn't work for himself. Like, I think that's fine because we haven't gotten the kid Spider-Man on screen like ever, really. So if that's what this trilogy's meant to be, I'm cool with that. Even if the next one is still a little more of that, I'm cool with it. Because, like, I think with Marvel and the MCU, they always think long term, and I think we'd be building to that for Peter. And I'm wondering if we can get to that place if the spectacle of this movie, like you said, is it's all of them, you know?
Yeah, like, I'm worried. Endgame totally dipped into this, but in that movie, it was just so deserved at that point that didn't really matter. Fan service. I feel like the fan service is sort of directing the pull of this movie and the direction of this movie, where like, man, like I don't need to see like it. Yeah, it's gonna be cool to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire show up again, but like I don't need to see that. Like, I'm assuming that they're gonna make this fit into the universe, but like, man, like it seems like this movie and that edition of a Spider-Verse only exists because of the positive reception to Into the Spider-Verse. I guess I'm also worried about Sony pulling this movie in a weird direction because like the rights between Marvel and Sony is like so diluted at this point, where Sony like owns Spider-Man, but like Marvel's making all the creative decisions, but also Sony is setting up their own Spider-Verse where like if something falls through, they just have Spider-Man, and they like it feels like this movie's being pulled in like several different directions.
Yeah. Do you want to hear my theory on that?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I really think what Spider-Verse, or sorry, not Spider-Verse. Okay, let's just call it Spider-Verse, Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
I think what that's going to do is, hopefully, best case scenario, what it does is it gives Tom Holland the room to like deal with the ramifications of his what is building to be a trilogy, sort of accept that responsibility, grow up by the end of the film, which I think is what the idea was all along, because I do believe that rumor about like 3 trilogies.
Yeah.
I think it's going to allow Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to sort of come in sort of like a Peter A role from Into the Spider-Verse of like, this is what I should be. This is like the standard of like what Spider-Man could be. And that's the amount of sacrifice I have to be making in my life. And sort of give the Raimi fans closure on Tobey Spider-Man. And I think Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is going to sort of be a backdoor into getting him back into an Amazing Spider-Man 3 and like exist in that Venom universe.
Really?
Yes, because listen, Andrew Garfield, I really like him as Spider-Man personally.
Yeah, I liked him.
And I think he's a good Peter, because sometimes Peter should, like, based on the comic, he's a jackass. I think he got screwed over based on some of those like Sony emails that leaked, and like there were talks back in like 2012 of him being in Avengers and stuff like that. So he really got screwed over with that franchise to the point where I think enough time has passed where if the contract is good enough and if they position him to be like the leading man of the Sony cinematic universe of Spider-Man, I think he'd probably come back. I think that makes everybody happy that you can have Venom and Spider-Man on screen together now. And that gives the MCU and Tom Holland some more safety. That's why I think this movie's existing.
I don't think we see 2 Spider-Man at the same time.
Well, WB is doing 2 Batman. I think if WB can do it, then Sony's like, oh, why can't we do that?
Yeah. I suppose. Man, Sony has a worse taste. The Sonyverse has a worse taste in my mouth than the DC universe does, which is wild.
You didn't like Venom?
No. And I'm not looking forward to Mobius. Is that what it's called? Mobius? Morbius?
Morbius, I think, yeah.
Um, God, with the Spider-Man PS4 JPEG in the background.
Oh my God. Yeah.
God. But yeah, like I say this now, like I'm worried about this movie because I think what we've been like sort of talking about is that it really feels like this movie is heavily influenced by studio decisions, and of course any Marvel movie is, because it's it's very much like a sort of cookie cutter movie that's made to sell millions of tickets or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in particular, this seems like Marvel's doing its own thing to set up the rest of the MCU in Phase 4 and beyond, and Sony's trying to do its own thing to set up its own Spider-Verse in case they like fully retain the rights, and Marvel just can't have that anymore. So it's kind of scary, honestly. And I'm already worried about Phase 4 because, like, how do they pick up the pieces after Endgame, because it felt like such a perfect conclusion. And it seems like Phase 4 is going to be really weird with, like, what's coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm still excited for this movie, but, man, I think it's going to be really bizarre, and I'm pretty worried about this.
Yeah, because, like, I think also the Raimi movies and the Amazing movies have their own vibe that I think would be lost if it's not made authentic, you know?
Totally.
So I do see worlds where the only two Spider-Man 3 movies that ever existed were like, oh man, they made some choices. But I'm still excited for it, you know? Like, at the end of the day, if it is all three of them together, that's going to be super cool. At least for the spectacle of it.
Yeah. I think that's what it's there for, is the spectacle.
Yeah. Which, like you said at the beginning of it all, is a little unfortunate just in terms of, like, Tom Holland's Spider-Man's character growth. But I think there's ways, I think, where we can work that in to the story, you know? Because, like, Into the Spider-Verse did it really well for Miles and Peter B, and, like, having that whole satisfying character growth where maybe the Tom Holland Spider-Man takes on those personality traits that people missed about the other two versions when he gets to hang out with them, you know? Like, maybe that's the big resolution of it all. I don't know.
Yeah. Do we know if the Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home director, is John Watts still involved?
Yes, I believe he is still attached to this. I think he's still the director. Yeah, he is actually, because I think they're shooting it right now.
Okay.
And I don't know if he's signed on for the next two trilogies that are being kicked around as existing, but yes, the next one is him.
Okay. That's good, like a sense of cohesion, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I was never like particularly taken with the direction of the two movies. Like, he didn't really stand out to me as like one of the best Marvel directors, even though I think Homecoming is one of the best Marvel movies. That just like didn't stand out to me.
Sure.
But yeah, it's exciting. I'm also nervous about it. I heard rumors, I forget where I heard this from, that we should be seeing like more stills from the movie soon.
Ooh.
Like within the next month or two.
Happy New Year, we get Toby back in the suit.
Man, could you imagine?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's really weird. Like I said, it feels like there's no fanfare that like one day we're gonna be waking up and it's like, oh cool, he's in the costume again. Nice. Like,
I think even if they're only in the movie for like 10 minutes, I think that trailer is gonna make sure that you know they're in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, you made some really interesting points about the Phase 4 thing, so maybe we do that discussion some other time, because I would love to talk about the future of the MCU at some point. But
yeah, same.
I think that's probably going to wrap up this week's Excelsior. We are, again, right on the cusp of some brand new Marvel content. And, you know, we're not too far away from the MCU returning either, because WandaVision hits in January, too. So.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah. Until then, though, Jack, where can the agents of Excelsior find you?
Sure, you can follow me on social media at FascinatedJack. Look forward to Christian, our friend Kevin Diaz, and I reacting to the Game Awards next Thursday, December 10th. Do you know what time it's at, Christian?
I think it's 4 to 8 on the Pacific time. I'm not 100% sure about East Coast.
Yeah, we're East Coast time, so at some point. So yeah, look out on social media feeds. You'll see it on mine. You'll see it on Christian's. But yeah, speaking of which, Christian, where can the people follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at Chris and Buckley. Like Jack said, Excelsior JC on Twitter for this show, at JoyClicks on Twitter, and youtube.com/JoyClicks for the video version of this podcast, as well as the reactions to the Game Awards next week. This show is available on audio services like Apple Podcast, Spotify, your service of choice. If you listen on that platform and you can rate a review on it, it would be greatly appreciated because it helps us out a ton. Just takes a second and keeps us the reigning champs, the number one Avengers podcast. We do have a little bit of competition. I've seen there's another Marvel's Avengers podcast.
Oh no.
But we're at the top of the charts still.
Is that true? Like, no lie?
Yeah, well, in terms of searching, yeah, we're the number one. When you search Marvel's Avengers, we are the first podcast to pop up in Apple Podcasts.
There you go. And that's all thanks to the listeners and viewers' support.
Yeah. And if you want to get involved further, patreon.com/joyclicks, $1 to $5 tiers get you a variety of things. $5 is producer credit like Aaron Easton. So thank you very much. And I didn't want to cut you off, but when you brought up the Game Awards, I realized Avengers didn't get one nom.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's hard to even say where that, like, maybe action adventure, but there was a lot of good action adventure games this year. And I feel like 7 out of 10, this came out around like a 7 out of 10. I feel like those usually don't get nominated for a ton of stuff.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like Sandra Saad could have gotten a nom for Kamala.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's totally deserving.
That's a major snub.
I agree. That's a very good point, Christian.
Thank you.
Let's kick out. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I think, like, I mean, you look at, like, Najee Jeter for Miles Morales. Like, I think those roles are similar in a way, and I think they're, in terms of impact and in terms of acting ability, like, those characters, like, stepping up to take leading roles for when, like, sort of their heroes are away or in despair. Like, yeah, that's a really good point. I think she knocks it out of the park.
Absolutely. So, maybe when Avengers 2 hits, we'll see. But
yeah.
Until then, Excelsior.
Excelsior.